Okay, so 2 classes back we explored emotional homes and what they were. Can we just discuss what are some of the difficulties we had while transiting from negative to positive emotional homes? If you faced any difficulties in your practice. The emotion is intense and so it sticks, and that means the transition takes time and feels out of reach because the negative emotion feels so intense at the moment, right? And it feels very real, it feels justified because your mind is giving you a narrative about it where it feels, of course I'm going to feel like this if circumstances are like that. And then you're indirectly telling yourself that if things are this way, you don't really have a choice but to be stuck in this negative emotional home, right? We often feel that, and that's perhaps the biggest challenge, that we feel stuck, we feel we don't have an option and that we have to feel like this. How many of us feel like that when circumstances go like that, we feel we have to feel like this? Or you don't feel like that, okay? Who else feels something different?
Stays for a while, but then it goes.
Yeah, but when it's very sticky, you feel like I'm stuck in it, I don't have an option. So here's where Mother says, and she says this in various different ways. What's your name? Okay. We met?
Yes.
Pandi?
Yes.
Okay. Choice. Life is a perpetual choice, Mother says, between truth and falsehood, light and darkness, progress and regression, the ascent towards the height or the fall into the abyss. It is for each one to choose freely. Quite a thing she's saying. Now, somewhere Mother also says that until we are united with the soul, we don't have any free will. But in the same breath, she says, for your purposes, think that you have a free will and still choose, though it's not really your choice. So going by that think you have free will and still choose, she's saying that at every moment you have the choice of the height and the abyss, of truth and falsehood, and anything that makes us unhappy is necessarily in the realm of falsehood, right? Because our truth is joy, our truth is happiness. So anything that makes us unhappy is coming from an ignorance. Wherever there is ignorance, there suffering too must come. There's that line, no, of Sri Aurobindo. So somewhere there is a higher truth I'm missing in that moment of ignorance. So transiting from a negative emotional home to a positive emotional home is simply transiting from ignorance to a higher truth that sets me free. As they say, the truth that sets me free. Can I have any examples of this from your own work with yourself or even in general? How have you found that you discover a higher truth which sets you free of the suffering of the moment? Huh?
You feel more relaxed.
No, but an example of a truth that sets you free.
If I felt very angry at somebody, I did. And it was somebody in school who's not really emotionally involved, but very, not a student, but I got very angry. I looked at myself and I said, what is happening, mother? Why am I getting angry? It's too small. And then it kept on sticking more than the other emotions which were really hurtful. This was not hurtful, but it was anger. And then I put in one of the rooms, like, that see mother-in-law, and I tried. And the next time she did something again like that.
So that's the higher truth, no? The apparent is this is a person separate from me, separate from God. But it is a truth that everything is God. So if you see mother in that person, then that's the higher truth that sets you free of the suffering, right? Or if your negative emotional home is a grudge against someone, blaming someone, which is often a negative emotional home, right?
But this is very strange. I just want to share that. If you have, like for me, if I have deeper hurts or pains, it's not even a hurt. Like for example, if it's with people in my life, it's not. But these smaller things pop up now. Like say a person in school or when you're like.
But there's no big and
security guard
small.
somewhere.
Negative emotional home is a negative emotional
I
home.
know, but I was wondering why it should come there. Because it's coming very often with these smaller things.
No, because if you're unhappy about bigger things in the background, these small things are the last straw that breaks the camel's back. No, they are okay. Then I don't know, explore, but maybe there is something bothering you. Then we get irritable with little things.
I know, and I understand what you're saying, but I looked, it's not that.
Then I don't know, explore what it could
I
be.
need to.
Okay. So, supposing I have a grudge against someone and I'm resenting them for what they've done, and I just sit quietly with myself, I may suddenly discover that what they've done in the moment is very small. My reaction to them is coming from my past, where maybe they've done a lot of other things. So I'm blaming them a lot for what they've done just now. But what they've done now is small, and I think I've forgiven them in the past, but there could be a whole history of things I'm carrying as baggage, so that this small thing suddenly comes up. So I'm actually thinking of somebody who was very upset with someone at home, and at the end of a quiet time with herself, she suddenly discovered this, that what she'd done yesterday or day before was very small, but I have so many unresolved grudges against her that they come out like this. So that is still a higher truth, right? Otherwise you're just seeing the moment and blaming her fully for it. But if you recognize there's a whole past context, a whole past which needs to heal, you don't blame the person too much for that one piecemeal action, and you realize it's really yourself which needs healing. So every transition from a negative emotional home to a positive emotional home is a transition from an ignorance to a lesser ignorance, if not truth. So moment you transit to that truth, it becomes the truth that sets you free. You don't have to. That's one way. Another way, I mean, you can explore any of the emotional homes. You can just offer it to mother. You can, sometimes I think if you have the gift of being able to pray from your heart and mean the prayer, it really is magical. So, just to share that 2 days back I got a call from somebody who I love dearly, who was very sick and was very uncomfortable, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to help her. There were no remedies which were working, etc. So although I'd just come back from school and I was exhausted, I just left everything. I sat at my altar and I just prayed to the mother for 10 minutes. And then pointless calling the person in 10 minutes and expecting any change in her, because she had a terrible itch with an allergy which was driving her nuts. So, but anyway, I called her and I asked, how are you? And she's saying, oh, very fine. So I said, what? So she said, I don't know, suddenly the itch just stopped. So I told her, I can't believe it. I just finished praying for you and you're telling me your itch stopped. Maybe it will come back. I don't know. This is not something that goes at one shot. But at least it was mother's way of telling me that I'm listening. Sometimes we pray and we feel, if we are in that state, we feel, is she really listening? I'm telling her so much, is she listening? But it was her way of saying, I'm listening, my ears are there. So if sometimes we can just pray from the heart. I didn't do any healing, nothing fancy, just simple words to mother asking for help, and how she listens. So sometimes if we just pray to her for help with simple words, like a child telling a mother, I really need this, and just tell her, I have all this in my past, I don't know how to deal with it, but you show me the way, I want to be free of it. Sometimes that's the most simple and effective way. But you have to experiment and explore and see what works for you. So now Sri Aurobindo's words from Basis of Yoga. There is no reason why you should abandon hope of success in the yoga. The state of depression which you now feel is temporary, and it comes even upon the strongest sadhaks at one time or another, or even often recurs. So depression is common, it's part of being human. The only thing needed is to hold firm with the awakened part of the being, to reject all contrary suggestions and wait, opening yourself as much as you can to the true power, till the crisis or change of which this depression is a stage is completed. The suggestions which come to your mind telling you that you are not fit and that you must go back to ordinary life. Sometimes we all feel that I can't really follow what mother is saying, I'm not fit for this yoga, etc., etc. Are false tamasic promptings from a hostile source. Ideas of this kind must always be rejected as inventions of the lower nature. Even if they are founded on appearances which seem convincing to the ignorant mind, they are false, because they exaggerate a passing movement and represent it as a decisive and definite truth. There is only one truth in you on which you have to lay constant hold, the truth of your divine possibilities and the call of the higher light to your nature. So we were doing this in our meditation class yesterday, that you have to remember only two things whenever you're low. There are two things you have to hold in mind. One is the truth of your divine possibilities and the call of the higher light to your nature. So very often when we see muck inside us, we don't believe that we have a spiritual future, that all this talk about rejecting the lower nature, supramentalizing, or very simply even coming to a stable state of peace, we feel that's so out of reach, I'm never going to reach there, etc. So Mother says, whenever you're in a low state, remind yourself of two things: the promise of your spiritual destiny, it's called Atmadhyak Kalya Shraddha, faith in the potentials of your soul. So have faith in that what you are now is not a final statement on what Mother's molding you to be, not what you will become, because on your own you can't. But if we've come to her molding hands in what was that line? A ray of timeless glory stoops a while to commune with the seized illumined clay. So each of us is a clay. So a ray of timeless glory stoops a while to commune with the seized. The light has seized us. Illumined clay, lit up clay. So all of us are clay in her hands, and we don't know it, but her invisible hands are working on us every moment of our lives to the extent that we'll allow it to work. So even when we turn our backs on her, there's that again, I increasingly think if we really go through every line in Savitri, we don't need anything else, because Savitri gives us everything. There's again that line, even when we are stuck, I'm not saying it verbatim, stuck in earthly consciousness and fail to look into our souls, still we have paths in us which grow towards the light. So even when our outer being is turned away from light, the light is working on us, the light is making us grow. So she will mold us into whatever we need to be molded into, but it may take time. We get impatient too fast, but she'll do everything in her season, not at our demand and not when we want it. So
But what about the present?
what about it?
Because things are going to happen and they're going to happen and they're going to happen. But right now, here, today, now, how am I to live?
As peacefully as you can, with as much faith and trust as you can. So one thing is about the future. See, anxiety is usually about the future, right? You will rarely be present in this moment. In this moment you're sitting, there's nothing to be anxious about. If there's anxiety, it's about what will happen 1 hour later, 1 day later, 1 week later, 1 year later. So do away with anxiety with faith to whatever extent you can. Mother's with me, wherever she'll take me, it'll be good. And about the past, it's guilt or regret, right? Those are the two corrosive things. Anxiety about the future is what poisons the present moment, and guilt or regret about the past is what poisons the present moment. And Mother has said umpteen times, right, that of all emotions, the one most corrosive to your progress is guilt. Whatever you've done, learn from it and move on. It's the past. It had to be. Make
But a lot
peace.
of the guilt is likely to be there because of the concept of evolution. And in a sense, because of evolution.
Why do you say that?
There is something to grow towards, hence you feel you're not good enough.
Not necessarily.
Or that you're not yet there. Or
No, guilt
you have
is
been otherwise
no,
because
guilt is more about what you've done in the past or said in the
it
past.
wasn't good enough.
But that was then, no, at every moment you have a chance to grow out of it. And in saying that you're not good enough or feeling guilty about it, you get stuck, you're in an impasse. You can't move because guilt won't allow you to grow.
So aspiration and not feeling
Exactly what mother says. Whatever you've done, never entertain guilt about it. Learn from it and move on. The key is to learn from it and to move on. But feel.
What if the lesson doesn't strike you at that point?
But now it can strike you. No, it didn't strike you then. That's why you were ignorant. But there's no point flogging yourself about it. If you learn from it now, fine. Say thank you to life and move ahead.
Yeah.
So, the only thing needed is to hold firm with the awakened part of your being, to reject all contrary suggestions and wait, opening yourself as much to the true power. We read all this. There is only one truth in you on which you have to lay constant hold, the truth of your divine possibilities and the call of the higher light to your nature. If you hold to that always, or even if you are momentarily shaken from your hold, return constantly to it. It will justify itself in the end in spite of all difficulties and obstacles and stumblings. So hold on to two truths, faith in your divine possibility and the call of the higher light on your nature. It said, no, those who call to the infinite are first called by the infinite. So hold on to the call of the light has called me. I wouldn't be here if it hadn't called me first. It will never forsake me. If you hold on to that always, or even if you are momentarily shaken from your hold, return constantly to it. It will justify itself in the end in spite of all difficulties and obstacles and stumblings. All in you that resists will disappear in time with the progressive unfolding of your spiritual nature. The disabilities of your past character and mind and vital habits need not discourage you. Some of them are no doubt serious, especially the animal sexuality of the vital parts and the support which the mind has given to it. But others have to face obstacles as serious in themselves and have surmounted them in purifying and liberating process of the yoga. I was just asking about you. It may not be easy to get rid of them altogether and it may take time. But if you persist and refuse all justification and all possibility of return to these things, you are bound in the end to conquer. So Mother's assuring us that, see, it's not us alone. All humanity is dealing with human imperfection, right? We are all imperfect. And there's no point flogging ourselves and feeling guilty about it. But every imperfection can be a grace, no? Why is it a grace? You learn from it. Suppose, and we were doing this in the morning yoga class, redeeming our past. So suppose one interaction of mine with somebody has caused me a lot of pain and reactivity. Yeah? So I'm blaming myself or I'm blaming the person. Whenever an interaction causes me pain, there are only two things I can blame. If it's the person, there's anger and resentment. If it's myself, there's guilt and shame, right? So whichever of the two the reaction is, suppose it is resentment towards the person, then what we were saying in the morning, that if you squeeze a limbu, you'll get lemon juice. If you squeeze an orange, you'll get orange juice, isn't it? What's inside the fruit, hidden in the rind, will become visible when it's squeezed. Now, if an interaction with a person squeezes out this kind of reaction from you, obviously that juice is inside you. The person didn't create it. It was already inside you. The difficulty just squeezed it out of your being, right? So that interaction is showing you the latent samskaras which are inside you. So once you see it, you have a chance to change it, right? If that person didn't come into your life and play this role, it would remain hidden inside you and you wouldn't see it, and you think, I'm a great person, I'm a great yogi or whatever, but it's all there inside you. So anyone who brings it out in you actually deserves your gratitude, right? You showed me what's inside me. You were the hand that squeezed and took out this juice so that I can see it. So in that sense, even what you called mistakes and reactivity is a grace, because if you really see it, you can grow from it, isn't it? And on the other hand, if you have a lot of blame towards yourself, then that's also a latent samskara in you. You probably from past lives have developed a mind which feels guilty quickly, ashamed quickly, is quick to flog yourself. So that's the juice that this particular interaction has squeezed out of you. So still, it's good to see that I have this samskara of guilt and shame, and I need to work out of it, because that's just what it is, a blueprint in my nervous system. It's not really the truth about me or about life or about circumstances. So in that sense, everything that life brings out for us, we can actually learn from it and grow. So in that sense, we were doing this beautiful mantra from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad this morning, Om Bhutaya Swaha. May my past be blessed and everyone's past be blessed. What does it mean to be blessed? To see the blessing in it. My past is already blessed, because everything that happens in my past, I think I've done it to myself or people have done it to me, but that's not so. Krishna says right in the Gita that every creature is mounted on the wheel of Maya and finally executes my will. So whatever interaction you had was already decided in a higher realm, and both you and this person executed that will. So it was already a blessing. But if I feel an ouch when I look back on the past, I don't have the wisdom to see it as a blessing. So when we are saying Bhutaya Swaha, may my past be blessed, I'm actually saying give me the inner vision to really see the past as a blessing, to see why it happened. So long as I don't know why it happened, I keep feeling they are wrong or I'm wrong. There's blame somewhere. But when I really see from within that this was the reason, this was the growth I needed to make, this was the growth the person needed to make, then somehow I'm at peace with it. I keep quoting this, no, Draupadi, you all know that she had the most tragic life of all. I mean, the amount of humiliation she suffered, few people in life have. And she was full of revenge and anger and fire. She was born also out of fire, you know that, she was fire born. So she was a very, very fiery queen all her life. She was prepping her husbands to take revenge and all that. And the story goes, when they all die and they are going, you know na, that story when they die and they are on their way. And at last in that moment, after leaving her body, suddenly everything becomes clear for Draupadi and all her anger is gone. And she says, at last I know that Draupadi had to go through whatever she did. So we don't have to leave our body for the soul wisdom to arise. At every moment, just make peace with knowing that each of us had to go through whatever we had to for our highest good. And that's what really blessing the past is about, to make peace with it. Instead of saying why, this is bad, that is bad. It may be, for many of us, our past can seem really terrible to our eyes. But so long as we don't work to make peace with it, it will keep hijacking our present and the future, right? Because our past pain is unresolved past, and karma is nothing but unresolved past, isn't it? Whatever gives us an ouch from the past is a blueprint to attract future patterns. Why? Because see, we suffer because of an ignorance, right? Wherever there is ignorance, there suffering too must come. And life is too compassionate a teacher to leave us with our ignorance. She will keep sending us the same test again and again till we learn the truth, and that test need not be sent to us. So if something gives us an ouch, it's from an ignorance. Any pain is coming from an ignorance. So till we learn the truth behind it, life will keep sending us similar pain again and again till it gets resolved. So actually, I feel this law of karma is so grossly misunderstood. Like yesterday, I was speaking to a young student of mine, been with me for years, but I was so disappointed because karma is something I keep talking about over and over again. He wasn't getting the job he wanted. So he said, you know, I must have done something very bad in my past life. I must have snatched somebody's job away from him. That's why this happened to me. And I said, what have you learned from me? That's not how karma works. That's too simplistic and juvenile. And I can't think of God, who's all love, to be such a strict judge. It doesn't work like that. It's not that you did something bad so you're not getting a job. But maybe not getting a job is stirring up so many emotions in you which are coming from past ignorance. You have to sit with yourself and figure out what that ignorance is. It's not necessary at all that you would have done anything bad to anyone. I don't think that's a valid understanding of the law of karma at all. I feel karma is not about punishment, but karma is a law of compassion. Life has so much compassion for me that it can never write me off. It sends me the same thing again and again and again, as if it's crossing its fingers behind the curtain and saying, now pass, never mind if you don't.
So
I'll
what
give
makes us pass finally? Because it's going to keep recurring.
to be conscious, to be conscious. Nash said a very beautiful thing to me. He's saying life's not about being good people, because good is a very questionable thing. It's about being conscious people, because many so-called good people are just mechanically good. They are not conscious at all. And then because they are not conscious, you can't say that life rewards consciousness, not goodness. If it's conditioned goodness, it's not that it will be rewarded, because it's just conditioning. But if it's authentic goodness coming from wisdom, then it's not even called goodness. It's just conscious human behavior, and that's what life ultimately rewards.
So what brings about that if you have a pattern which is recurring and it's a blind spot and you can't see it? What is
No, so you need, no, life will give you pain till you see it.
So then how do you think the pain will keep coming but you're still not seeing it?
No, Purvi, I don't agree with that. I think all of us sooner or later see. How can we not see? I don't think there's one of us here who can say that recurrent pain came to me and I didn't really see what it was leading me to. I don't think. Is there anyone here who can say that I'd never learned from my pain? Not possible. Can you say you haven't learned from your pain?
Well, I haven't learned the entire
No, it's a process. Nobody can say they've learned the entire lesson. Then you're enlightened. But every time if you're seeing, this pain came because I was unconscious here, it's a process. So, now this is a very beautiful and timely passage, just what we needed to really understand what we are discussing. It's from Savitri, page 457. A magician's formulas have made matter's law. Matter's laws are the laws of karma. Magician's formula is the divine intelligence, that's the magician. So God's formulas have made matter's laws. And while they last, all things by them are bound. So while these laws last, everything is bound. There's no free will at all. But the spirit's consent is needed for each act. So we are bound by the laws of karma, laws of matter, and yet the spirit's consent is needed for each act. And freedom walks in the same pace with law. So let's go back to the metaphor we explored a few classes back, artificial intelligence, and there's a programmer of the artificial intelligence. So the robot works according to the programming of the programmer. Let's take it that programming is the laws of karma to which the robot is bound. But where the metaphor breaks is that so for us, the programmer is the self and each of us is the robot. But where the metaphor breaks down is that the robot is the being of the programmer. We are the being of the self, right? At least to our eyes, the robot is separate from the programmer. But in our case, the programmer has become the robot. So if for a moment identity shifts from the software program by which the robot is working to the programmer inside, then everything can change. Wherever the soul force comes in, all the laws of karma change. So Mother very simply says it, grace is bigger than karma. So whenever you have the grace to connect with your soul, all karma can be wiped out. And that's the whole point of karma really. If you change karma within the matrix of the karma, it's a long process. But every time your old thought patterns come up and you turn to grace and you simple thing like praying to the mother or whatever, and grace comes in, it can be cut short. So the mother did a beautiful drawing. She drew a curvy line like that, the beginning and the end. So the end, this is the path we normally take, it's so long. But she says the sunlit path, the path you're walking with me, is a straight line versus this, it's one straight line. And this diagram can be our model in that moment when a negative emotional home comes up and we go through the long way of fighting with it, battling with it, distracting ourselves, blah blah blah. It's this long way. But we just call to her, connect with her, it's the sunlit path. The karma gets wiped out or at least weaker. So, and while they last, all things by them are bound. But the spirit's consent is needed for each act, and freedom walks in the same pace with law. All here can change if the magician choose. If God chooses, everything can change. If human will could be made one with God's. If human thought could echo the thought of God, man might be all-knowing and omnipotent. So when can human will be made one with God? When our will ceases, right? That's the state of yoga, what Patanjali says, yoga's chitta vritti nirodha. When thoughts stop, there is a union of the outer being with the inner being. So somebody like Ramana Maharishi, who was constantly in the highest state of samadhi, he had no thoughts. Somebody asked him, Bhagwan, do you ever think? So he said, yeah, once in a month, 1 or 2 thoughts come. So he was like that, he had no thought. So because he didn't have thought, he didn't have his own will. Whatever he was doing was at one ment with God's will. So, yeah?
But the spirit's consent is needed, so that will be what?
The programmer's consent. The programmer, we feel all this that's happening is wrong, but Krishna said everything happens by my will. That's the programmer. Spirit is the programmer.
So can
then God. Yeah. But it's like here the programmer from behind the veil is controlling the robot. But suppose the robot realizes that he's not really the robot, he's the programmer, and he goes back and makes his will one with the programmer, then the whole program changes. Yeah?
Everything is Krishna's will, that there is no wrong or
Well, if you have a different vision, not your mental vision, then you'll see that everything is perfectly as it needs to be. Like Draupadi saw, I understand. Draupadi had to go through what she did. Duryodhan didn't do wrong, nobody did wrong. In that moment she saw everything was as it had to be. But you need that perspective to see it. But where we are, Varun, we will very often judge things as wrong. But how do I word it? I just had this thought this afternoon, but I don't know if I'll find the words for it. Help me with it. It's like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. No, forget Chaitanya. His life is not known to many. But Mirabai we all know. So Mirabai, we know that Krishna gave her the Adesh that she has to leave her palace and go to Vrindavan. And she just took that little idol of Krishna and walked the streets of Vrindavan. Her clothes were torn. She was called the beggar princess because she was after all a very beautiful queen, but she had tattered clothes. So people made fun of her. People made comments like, she looks like a very royal lady, but she must have done something very wrong, which is why she was cast away. And she faced all kinds of hardships, and in the 2 years that she was away on the streets, Krishna never came to her once. Otherwise we know he used to come and play with her all the time. But he never came to her once. And one day when she was sleeping, some robbers robbed even her idol. So now she said that I must be so bad, O Krishna, that you brought me to this. So I'm going to commit suicide. But what was her last prayer before committing suicide? That I don't know where I go before when I die jumping into the river. But Krishna, grant me this much, that next life, wherever I am, find me. I won't know how to find you. I don't know how I'll be. So even after he's done all this to her, I mean, can you imagine, put yourself in, she's blindly followed him. She's gone into the streets, leaving her palace and everything. And the time she's left, he's not come to her once. He's not rescued her when people have insulted her. He's not protected her when her statue was snatched away. She should be hating Krishna, right? But look at the unconditional love she had for him. She's telling him that even when I die, only one thing I want in my next life. This life I found love for you. I know who you are. Next life, suppose I lose memory of you, you have to promise me that next life you will be there. So that's what real unconditional love is. Apparently Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is supposed to have written that also in one of his celebrated verses, that Krishna, do whatever you like to me, hug me, trample me, but my love for you won't change. And at some level, our love for God is like that. No, for moments we get angry with God, but somehow whatever life does to us, we may not articulate it. In our heads, it's God doing it to us, right? So if life does something good, thank you God, you're so beautiful. Life does something bad, I feel a little more distant from God, because somewhere I feel life is being done to us through the hands of God, right? So our affection for God changes depending on what life does to us, by and large. Till we of course reach Mirabai and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stage, then it's unconditional. But as we grow,
Sorry,
yeah?
I don't agree.
Okay, maybe not for you, but I'm talking in general.
Saying
Huh.
that if so-called bad things happen, you're moving more towards the Lord.
You are, but for many of us our faith wavers. Not for you maybe, but for many of us, when things don't go well, we don't feel so close to God till things go very wrong. Then when we really turn to God and He answers, then we come to God with a bang. But when things are kind of going wrong, we just feel irritated. We don't feel so close to God. So the point is that eventually when we go through many cycles like this, we come to a phase, we more and more feel an unconditional love to God. It's work in progress. Whatever happens, we can't help but love God. We move towards that in processes. Now, if everyone is God, then I feel the key to good relationships with people is to apply this, to be more and more unconditional with everyone. Start with the people close to you. Difficult for the whole world, but at least start with the people who are close to you. Whatever they do to you, just the way you unconditionally love God, just make up your mind, I'm going to unconditionally try and have affection for them, whatever they do to me, because I think they are doing it to me from their will, but it's really Krishna's will, Mother's will, whatever you call it, acting from behind, which is making them behave like this. So whenever they behave beautifully to me, very good, I'm very grateful. But when they behave not so nice to me, let me ignore that and not judge it. I don't know why. I'll be quick to say they behaved like this because this is their intention. They want to put me down. They want to exclude me. But chuck all that. You'll never really know the real reason why they did it. Are you getting what I'm saying? Your mind will jump to conclusions about the reason they did it. But you'll actually never know the real reason they did it. You don't know what forces acted on them. You don't know what was their past context. You don't know what God's intention is in making them behave like this to you.
Yes, our will and everything.
Sorry?
So God is testing us.
Understand, testing means giving you a chance to grow, not test as in a hard test. So there is so many greater intentions behind anyone's behavior to you that your conclusion about it will never be right. Take it from me, you're so convinced that you know why she said this and why he did this, but it will never be accurate. Remember that brilliant saying, I say it again and again, that even the most brilliant, take the best watchsmith in the world and show him a watch from outside and tell him to draw the circuitry. He'll draw the circuitry, but when you open the watch, it will always be different from what the most brilliant watchsmith has drawn. So whatever conclusions you're jumping to about the bad behavior of a person, just hear my voice, let it remind you again and again, it's not accurate, it's not true. So let me drop it. I don't know why it happens, yeah, it's hurting me, but don't believe your narrative about it, because that will never be true. In the larger context, at a very apparent level, maybe here or there you've got some things right, but in the larger context, those some things right will show themselves to be wrong. Do you understand what I'm saying? So if more and more we can be unconditional towards the people at least we are close to, because we want to invest our energies into them, right? Later on towards everyone, but more and more if I can be unconditional towards people I'm close to, how? Feeling very grateful, whatever good they do, taking it as a bonus, and whatever is negative coming to me from them, what my mind, don't let me judge it. Decide, I'm going to be unconditional towards them. Whatever they do, all humanity is grappling with human imperfection. They also are. They can't help it. So let me just be unconditional towards it. You have a question?
Carol Miller, remind me of Carol Miller's line, I've signed a permanent peace treaty between me and my world.
I've signed a permanent ceasefire between the world and me. She says that when the smoke clears, that is the smoke of ignorance clears, you'll see that the enemy is not what he appears to be. So she says when the smoke clears, you'll see that the enemy is not what he appears to be. So just sign a permanent ceasefire in your agreement with life. So
I have a question.
No, use right language. God will always want what your psychic being wants, because your psychic being is one with God. But the psychic being may not want what your vital wants.
Okay, so the main issue is in bringing these two together. So that
Yes.
we are basically
So in
alignment
transforming the vital. So transforming emotional homes is a very major work in transforming the vital. So if human thought could echo the thoughts of God, man might be all-knowing and omnipotent. But now he walks in nature's doubtful ray. Yet, can the mind of man receive God's light? The force of man can be driven by God's force. Then, is he a miracle doing miracles? So when my will is given away and my will is made one with God's will, then he is a miracle doing miracles. For only so can he be nature's king. It is decreed and Satyavan must die. The hour is fixed, chosen the fatal stroke. This is Narad telling Savitri's mother, because Savitri's mother is saying, what kind of terrible God and terrible life has God imposed on my daughter? So Narad is replying to the queen. It is decreed and Satyavan must die. The hour is fixed, chosen the fatal stroke. What else shall be is written in her soul. But till the hour reveals the fateful script, the writing waits illegible and mute. Fate is truth working out in ignorance. O King, thy fate is a transaction done at every hour between nature and thy soul, with God for its foreseeing arbiter. So beautiful. This sums up what we've been saying. Further down, he says, and the two are linked, so I'm skipping some lines. O man, the events that meet thee on thy road, though they smite thy body and soul with joy and grief, are not thy fate. We feel my fate is what happens to me. The interaction I've had, the job I get, what happens to me. But Sri Aurobindo is saying that's not your fate. O man, the events that meet thee on thy road, though they smite thy body and soul with joy and grief, are not thy fate. They touch thee a while and pass. Even death can cut not short thy spirit's walk. Thy goal, the road thou choosest, are thy fate. So, can we open the windows? So, let's understand all these lines. Thy fate at every moment is a transaction between God, between thy soul. One sec, let's see the. Thy fate is a transaction at every hour between thy nature and soul. So Purvi, that is between the vital and the psychic. In other words, your fate at every hour is a transaction between nature and thy soul. Your nature is vital, mental sometimes, but largely for most of us it's vital. So thy fate is a transaction between nature and thy soul, between the vital and the psychic being. So supposing Isha and I are having a conversation and Isha is telling me something that's unpalatable. That's the event that has happened. Depending on my nature, either I'll feel I'm bad, so I deserve what Isha is saying. So if my past samskar is guilt, guilt will come up. If my past samskar is anger and resentment, I'll feel anger and resentment. But both these are in the domain of the mental, vital, physical, outer being. So those come up, but at that moment, if I have the grace of offering them to the mother or remembering the mother, not buying into the narratives that the guilt or the resentment is selling me. So that's a transaction between nature and thy soul, with God as the arbitrator. Grace will finally decide who's going to win, the psychic being or the vital. So at every moment there's a control, there's an ultimate control. You make your efforts, but that efforts, if it needs to succeed in that moment, there'll be an intercession. But maybe you need to go through more cycles of this for your growth. So then the intercession will be withheld. So, fate is truth working out in ignorance, O king. Thy fate is a transaction done at every hour between nature and thy soul, with God for its foreseeing arbiter. Fate is a balance drawn in destiny's book. Man can accept his fate, he can refuse. Even if the one maintains the unseen decree, he writes thy refusal in thy credit page. This is what I mean. You tried, anger came up, you remembered mother, but anger took over. So you refuse to submit to the anger by remembering mother. So that will still win you a brownie point. He writes thy refusal in thy credit page. You tried, but maybe the matrix or the talk of the moment was such that it didn't serve your purposes to succeed. But the very fact that you tried, it's written in your credit page. For doom is not a close, a mystic seal. Even if you were doomed and the anger took you over, it's not a close, a mystic seal. Arisen from the tragic crash of life, arisen from the body's torture and death, the spirit rises mightier by defeat. Its god-like wings grow wider with each fall. Its splendid failures sum to victory. O man, the events that meet thee on thy road, though they smite thy body and soul with joy and grief, are not thy fate. They touch thee awhile and pass. Even death can cut not short thy spirit's walk. Thy goal, the road thou choosest, are thy fate. So we'll skip the next two passages of Savitri. We come to, so Bijal we come to the next page. Ramana Maharishi said to me, the only spiritual life you need is not to react. So beautiful. To be calm is the greatest asset in the world. It's the greatest siddhi, the greatest power you can have. I'm repeating this, if we can learn this up. Ramana Maharishi says the only spiritual life you need is not to react. If you can only learn to be calm, you will solve every problem. This is something you must remember. When you are perfectly calm, time stops. There is no time, karma stops, samskars stop. Everything becomes null and void. For when you are calm, you are one with the entire energy of the universe, and everything will go well with you. Why does Robert Adams say this? That when you are calm, you are one with the entire energy of the universe. Why does he say that?
Because you're not giving into.
Because you're calm when you're not thinking, right? It's that sutra, Yoga's Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Yoga is union of the outer being with the inner being, which happens when thoughts stop. So we may not be in a state of silence, but the slower our thoughts run, the more we are one with our source, with our inner being. So the less reactive we are, the more one we are with the universe.
But isn't this like the most difficult thing in the world?
It is difficult but not impossible. It's not impossible, Purvi. See, surrender makes it easy. Mother says the way is difficult, but surrender makes it easy. So if I'm constantly in the knowing that everything that's happening is happening by God's will, everything is God, then I won't buy into the narratives my mind is selling me about it. I'll step back and observe them without freezing them into a reality for me. So Sri Aurobindo says, no, a silent mind is not a thought-free mind. A silent mind is a mind that can witness thoughts without identifying with them. That at least I can do. To not buy into thoughts, to not believe them, to not make them real for me. At least that much I can do. So, if you can learn to be calm, you will solve every problem. This is something you must remember. When you're perfectly calm, time stops. There is no time, karma stops, samskars stop. Everything becomes null and void. For when you are calm, you are one with the entire energy of the universe. Everything will go well with you. To be calm means you are in control. You are not worried about the situation, the outcome, what is going to happen tomorrow. To be calm means everything is all right. There is nothing to worry about, nothing to fret over. This is also the meaning of the biblical saying, be still and know that I am God. What does this mean? Be still and know that I am God, that I am in charge. Everything in life is a movement in my body. So don't react to the appearances. If I am everything, I have ultimate control over everything. You don't react. You leave it to me. Be still and know that I am God. To be calm is to be still. So the next page, beautiful quotes from Savitri. No, I'm not doing this.
There's a sutra after
I'm skipping that also. Engrossed, I'm so sorry, but when I send her the quote, something comes and then through the day something else comes. I have to be true to what comes. So, engrossed in the external world's design. So this is talking about a being, each of us, we are engrossed in the external world's design, is chosen by a secret witness eye and driven by a pointing hand of light across his soul's unmapped immensitudes. So I love this phrase, a pointing hand of light is driving us across the roads of life. So it's so beautiful to think of God as an invisible pointing hand of life who's taking us through everything. And then this is beautiful, but a little preamble before we go to it. So we have said that, or Rama shared that she was angry with somebody till she really reminded herself that this is also God. And really, this won't happen if I'm living thinking that's Purvi and that's Shailaja and that's Isha and that's Nash and that's Mansi and that's Komal. And then suddenly when Varun irritates me, to remind myself that Varun is mother. It won't happen like that. But if I'm constantly holding the thought that everyone is mother, then that thought is so living in me that if somebody irritates me, it comes to the forefront that this is mother. But if, see, spirituality can't be a first aid thing. I can't live, I mean, and let's face it, most of us live our whole life, most 90% of the time forgetting God and forgetting mother, because we get too caught up with the momentum of life. It's not that we are bad, that's just how it is. But if I change that, and if I constantly have the feeling that everything is the mother, then at the moment when somebody annoys us, it will kick in quite effortlessly. Oh, but this too is the mother playing with me. And again that thought, that Sri Aurobindo's aphorism that God struck me with a human hand, shall I have the arrogance to say, I forgive thee thy insolence, O God. So I'll just laugh, it's mother playing with me, and I won't get so irritated. But for that, this has to be a 24/7 thing, that, or at least to remember mother, forget thinking that everything is mother, but really in the whole day, how much of the time have we remembered mother? Honestly, not even a few minutes. Honestly, be honest with yourself. How much of the time has she, or you've been too occupied dealing with things, doing things, answering things, but she hasn't been present with you, no? So in that sense, we are living yoga all wrong. You remember that sweet story, right, with Udar? So when Udar asked mother, am I making progress? So the mother said, what do you do when you wake up in the morning? So he said, I brush my teeth. So she said that, but you're doing it all wrong. You should invite me to brush your teeth for you. You should invite me into everything. And we somehow, out of forgetfulness, forget to invite her into anything, because we feel we have to get things done. But that's where we go wrong. And whatever little steps, as much of the day as we can remember her, and remember her with love, to that, yoga is as simple as remembering the mother with love throughout the day, or as much of the day that we can. But why we don't remember her is because we remember ourselves. Our whole day is about me. I have to get things done. How did I look? How did I talk? What will I do? That's why Sri Aurobindo says that in a nutshell, yoga is changing the axis of your existence from I-centeredness to God-centeredness. Right now, my whole world is revolving around I, me, mine, me, my health, my this, my that. But she says it's to change it, from constantly thinking of myself to constantly thinking of God. Yeah? So this is a beautiful line. As through a dress the wearer's shape is seen, there reach through forms to the hidden absolute, a cosmic feeling and a transcendent sight. Now this can be a mantra for the whole day. It's so beautiful if you get it. Suppose a wearer has worn a transparent dress. So it's saying, as through a dress, the wearer's shape is seen. So everyone is a dress that God has worn. Now if I have the gaze which makes that dress transparent, I will see God behind every dress. So as through a dress, the wearer's shape is seen, they reach through forms through the hidden absolute, a cosmic feeling and transcendent sight. Just shut your eyes. Let's just contemplate these lines. As through a dress, the wearer's shape is seen, they reach through forms to the hidden absolute, a cosmic feeling and transcendent sight. So the hidden absolute is the God within me. So everyone, their body is a dress God is wearing. And through all forms, their reach to the hidden absolute, which is the God in me, a cosmic feeling, I felt one with everyone, and a transcendent sight. Just repeat these in your heart and see what they do to you. As through a dress, the wearer's shape is seen. Their reach through forms to the hidden absolute, a cosmic feeling and transcendent sight. As through a dress, the wearer's shape is seen. Their reach through forms to the hidden absolute, a cosmic feeling and a transcendent sight. With your eyes shut, visualize all the people in the room and apply this to them all. As through a dress, the wearer's shape is seen. Their reach through forms to the hidden absolute, a cosmic feeling and transcendent sight. So this beautiful poem, the last screen share, because thou art, the devotee telling God, because thou art all beauty and all bliss, my soul, blind and enamored, yearns for thee. It bears thy mystic touch in all that is, and thrills with the burden of that ecstasy. Behind all eyes I meet thy secret gaze, and in each voice I hear thy magic tune. Thy sweetness hunts my heart through nature's ways. Nowhere it beats now, from thy snare immune. It loves thy body in all living things. It loves thy body in all living things. Thy joy is there in every leaf and stone. The moments bring thee on their fiery wings. Every moment is you. The moments bring thee on their fiery wings. Sight's endless artistry is thou alone. Time voyages with thee upon its prow, and all the future's passionate hope is thou. So now let's just sit and assimilate what we've done. So whenever we are caught in a negative space, Sri Aurobindo's line from Savitri, wherever there is ignorance, there suffering too must come. So we are suffering because we are ignorant of a higher truth. When we know that higher truth, the suffering is redeemed to that extent. For example, if I am holding a grudge against somebody because of their behavior, somewhere I've forgotten that all is God, that nothing happens without His will. I am blaming the ill intention of that person towards me for that person's words or behavior. but that person's words and behavior has been manipulated by the higher will, then again the question, why would God make the person behave like this to me? So we remember that when a lemon is squeezed, lemon juice comes out. When an orange is squeezed, orange juice comes out. The juice is hidden in the rind of the fruit, but when difficulty squeezes that fruit, what's inside comes out so that it's visible. The person was made to behave like this with me, to squeeze me into bringing out whatever's hidden in me so that I can see it and work to transform it. When I see this higher truth, the blame goes away from the person. Instead of putting my life energies into making the person see that they are wrong, my life energies will go into what can I learn from this? What is that past samskar in me that needs to change? So instead of hopelessness, there'll be hope, there'll be aspiration. An evolutionary will seize me. So that's one example of the truth setting me free of the ignorance. Also, if I remember what Mother says, that the most important thing is to be able to see everything in God and as God. And this can't be a first aid. For example, if somebody has annoyed me, then to remember, oh, she's also God, it won't really help. But if I'm practicing this, constantly thinking of the Mother, thinking of God, and constantly reminding myself that every form is the Mother, then that remembrance is so alive that even if somebody hurts me, I remember that's Mother playing with me. And I won't believe the narratives that my mind tells me about the intention behind the person's words or action. And that's something I should really practice. Never to believe the negative narratives that the mind tells me about a person's behavior towards me. More and more, at least towards people who are close to me, let me practice being unconditional, just the way I try to be unconditional towards God. Whatever the person does, if it's good, I'm grateful and happy. If it's something that my mind judges as negative, let me not believe the story behind the intention of that person that my mind sells me. However right it seems, it will always be wrong. Just the way if I invite the most excellent watchsmith in the world, show him a watch from outside and tell him to sketch the circuitry of the watch inside, if I open the watch, the circuitry will always be different from what the watchsmith sketched. However clever I think I am, let me not believe my cleverness, that is assessing the intention behind the person's behavior. The actual context and intention will be something I'll never know. So let me drop it and move on. And these beautiful lines from Sri Aurobindo's poem, Because Thou Art, behind all eyes I meet thy secret gaze. So we did this yesterday in class. Bring back the memory of that. Visualize this person's eyes in front of you, the difficult person. And just see Mother's eyes looking at you from behind those eyes. Behind all eyes, I meet thy secret gaze. Behind all eyes, I meet thy secret gaze. And in each voice I hear thy magic tune. So the person is saying whatever the person is saying, but only executing that divine will. And in each voice I hear thy magic tune. Thy sweetness hunts my heart through nature's ways. Know where it beats now, from thy snare immune. Time voyages with thee upon its prow, and all the futures, passionate hope art thou. So let this be my practice through the week, to remember Mother with love as much as I can through the day, and to remember all is her. And this remembrance will make me not believe my mental judgments and be at peace with whatever life is bringing to me in the moment. Hands in a namaste at the heart, 3 ohms.